Good morning and welcome to today's edition of Now Streaming, reaching you from the Advent Cable Network Nigeria Television. I'm your anchor, Mojisola. Thank you for having us in this morning's show as we discuss trending news and issues affecting our lives. Today I have in the studio with me
I am Smart Simon, aka SS and S.
Nice
Good
one.
morning.
Good morning, sir. We also have with us in the studio today Barrister Emmanuel Omole.
Thank you so
a
much.
legal practitioner based in Abuja, head of chambers of Nakudu Law Partners in Abuja. He's passionate about social change and government accountability. You're most welcome, sir.
Thank you so much.
Good to have you with us this morning.
I'm sorry I don't have a fancy initials.
Not all of us have fancy initials. Gentlemen, let's get into the trending news of today, Tuesday, the 13th of July, 2021. It's been raining in Abuja. I don't know of other parts of the country, but it's flood season in FCT.
Yeah, I don't want to see it from the flood point of view.
Okay.
I want to see it from the blessings of
The
God.
food.
Because we've been looking forward to having rain.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that farmers will be able to farm, especially this year that we have a lot of banditry, terrorism, and what have you. People are not in their farms. So when the rain comes, I see it as a blessing for flooding. Perhaps as a result of the negligence that we have on our part. Government is doing theirs, but their effort can be improved upon. And then citizens who would decide to dump things in the gutters. Yesterday, there was a lot of challenge driving around town.
Yes.
Because vehicles have to stop because the roads were flooding.
Like that in major cities.
Let's not talk of Lagos and their canoes.
It's the irony of mindsets, because on one hand, everyone in the city is crying flood, 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 flood. In more remote parts of the country, they are happy, celebrating the rains, cultivating their planting and planning on how to cultivate their crops and products.
Yeah.
As for the city, it's, planning a city, it's a collaborative effort between the government and the citizens.
Yeah.
But the problem starts from when there's a breakdown in communication between the government and the citizens. Because we have our responsibility as citizens, they have their responsibility. So the government provides this infrastructure when they are planning these towns and cities. We now have the duty of properly using it and exercising what we call reasonable care.
Apart from even using it, I know there have been issues in the past where someone will build his house up to where the gutter is supposed to be and refuse to move his fence.
That's very true.
So we have those issues as well.
They call it maximizing space.
Space. Is it their own to start with? But then if you're out there and you're driving in the rain, you should take a few precautions. Accident rates increase during the rains. I mean, yesterday I saw some really bad too on the airport road. So slow down, turn on your hazard lights, park if need be if it's too heavy. And no matter how small the water appears to be, water has a lot of force in it.
Exactly.
Try not to drag with elements of nature. It doesn't usually end well.
And the roads tend to be more slippery. I still don't understand why people have that inclination to speed when there is rain.
When it's raining heavily.
I still can't understand something. I don't mean to be harsh, but
I want to catch up with...
One day, if I see an accident scene, I'll just go to the guy sitting on the floor and say, but why are you
What were you thinking?
What are you thinking? Because we need to know what is running in their mind.
Actually, a lot of drivers are no reason driving.
That's true.
That is it.
With their
how many people are properly licensed to drive?
That's very true.
How many people are thinking well while driving?
That's an entire different topic. And in fact, we should talk about that and get someone from road safety. Yes, let's have that conversation.
Very, very true.
So some good news, mixed news from Kaduna State. The Emir of Kajuru has been released, but his family members are still being held for ransom. Your thoughts, gentlemen?
Yeah, for me, I will say that this is some kind of trick on the part of the kidnappers. Okay? They've taken all of them together. He has seen how horrible the situation is. As the head, go back, go and look for the money so that you can rescue those who are in our net. That is just a trick. Otherwise, any other person will have been released. So please go and get the money and come and then get your people out. But the whole scenario, for me, is pointing to the fact that government have failed in their responsibility. If this is a serious country, the governor of Kaduna State will have resigned because he has not been able to manage the situation. There has been problems upon problems. And of course, if your responsibility is not to secure life and properties, what else will you be doing? So in serious countries, when problems overwhelm the person who supposedly is responsible, you resign and say, I cannot do it. But in Nigeria, we don't resign. No. Maybe Barrister will tell us why.
As if he knows.
There's something that we understand when we are learning about social contract. I think that's the beginning of the problem. It's a mindset problem. In society, there's a social contract, and contract works in I'm giving, you're giving. I'm performing this role, you are performing this role. So first of all, they don't understand that they're being, or you assuming a seat in government puts you as a party to this contract. You are now a party to a contract with your people. So you are meant to provide certain basic necessities, such as security, such as welfare. In turn, the people are paying tax. In turn, you are taking our resources, our human, our mineral and our natural resources. And then they are giving you your salary, you are living in the government house, you are happy. Now, when you're happy in the government house, and on our end, we are not protected. On our end, there is no welfare. It's so bad that it is the neglect of the government that worsens the insecurity. And further neglect of the government with regards to the worsening insecurity further worsens the insecurity. Because we'll get to a point, the citizens will say, okay, stop. And that's, I don't mean to take us to the Niger Delta, but that was their primary. If you go to the root of their protest, if you go to the root of their agitation, is that you've not given us security, you've not given us welfare. You are coming, you are just packing our oil, you are just packing it.
Destroying our land.
And you're worsening the environment, polluting the water, and you're just packing the oil, and you're looking at us waving. Bye-bye, bye-bye.
There is no proper public relation with regards to Niger Delta. Not that this money are not given, but some certain individuals will take the money.
That's an issue for another day. But the governors
without taking it
down to the grassroots.
You understand? A lot of negotiations in Niger Delta were actually with people supposedly traditional hates, political hate, and what have you.
Yes.
But this money don't get to where it's supposed to get.
Even starting from the 13% derivation that they were getting. So apparently, Niger Delta states get more in allocation, apart from Lagos. You know, they're in a world of their own.
Yeah.
But in terms of the rest of Nigeria, they get more of the federal allocation. So it still goes down to this contract. What are their governors doing? What are their local government chairmen doing?
Okay, so let's continue talking about bandits. Okay, sorry to sound like that.
It's the latest business in town at this point.
Someone called it a franchise.
A friend of mine was saying that maybe we should make a branch of law kidnapping law or abduction law, so that lawyers will start specializing in that law, start doing contracts for release of people.
Okay, no, that's not funny.
It's so ridiculous. It's so ridiculous.
No, that's not funny.
And
so, but then in good news, the Catholic Society celebrates the release of Reverend Father Wada, who was kidnapped last month.
Yes.
He was even taken away by the ISWAP Boko Haram terrorists in Maiduguri, Damboa Road, and he's been released.
I think that was mixed
news.
Honestly,
we are so grateful to God that this clergyman has been returned alive.
Yes. Ultimately.
Because the moment we heard the news, one tend to conclude that it's over for him. But for whatever reason, he has been returned alive.
I mean, even the way he was
God
found,
be the glory.
The way the car was found, they said they found his car on that road riddled with bullet holes.
Wow.
So I'm sure everybody must have assumed that he was killed, and he's back. And they say the bishop will address the nation at a later date. Congratulations.
These are the situations we keep on hearing. Kidnap, release, kidnap, release.
Someone said we shouldn't call it kidnap anymore because it's not kids that are being taken away. We call it people now.
Legal terms.
It's quite unfortunate.
Abduction. Okay.
So this kind of thing is happening. I think that our government, people who are responsible, talking about social contract now, must just rise up and do the needful. I learned that NIA, money has been given to them to secure some modern technological equipment to be able to track the kidnappers and what have you. But I think that beyond securing these technologies, there are a lot that need to be done on the ground. What is the problem and how do we go about it? Like we were saying yesterday, sometimes there are issues that you need to bring to the table and trying to sort out what the problem is. What is our problem in Nigeria and how can we solve these problems? You understand? Are we playing politics with security?
People's lives, property.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Because if we are serious, these things won't happen. I remember during the administration of Goodluck Jonathan, when these terrorists were being handled, some elites in the north have said that what was happening was a genocide against the people of the north.
Okay, so now what is it? Who is perpetrating the genocide? It's they themselves.
So they brought in religion. They say he's from the south. That is why he's killing the people from the north.
Okay.
Now north has become so insecure.
How many years
to the point that emirs can now be kidnapped in his own
palaces.
Okay. Can you see that?
Can imagine where Jonathan is right now. Former president. It's just saying, I told you people didn't listen to me. I told you.
Okay, so in further good news, a certain private JAMILU Mohammed was granted automatic promotion by the Chief of Army Staff for his performance at a regimented quarter guard during a visit to the Command Engineering Depot in Kaduna. So I think that's a good one for him.
It is. It's an unusual.
It's an unusual
move, yes. And congratulations to the private and his family.
Yes.
It's a commendable move. It's usually a thing of excitement when hard work and dedication is rewarded, especially in a, if I'm permitted to use the word, failing system. Because when you are skin deep in this kind of system, there is a motivation that goes the other way. There's a motivation not to do so much. There's a motivation not to pour yourself out, not to sacrifice for the nation. So it's a commendable thing when you see young men out there still putting in this effort, still sacrificing to make sure that this country works, to make sure that our institutions work, no matter what. Hopefully sometime in future he will have, he will be in a position where he can do so much more.
I would like to say that what the Chief of Army Staff has done is worthy of emulation. Let's all others who are in a position of authority always be on the lookout for those who are doing well.
Yes.
And they should be recognized. Where they need to be promoted, that should be done, because that will motivate others.
That's very true.
So that it won't be like we are in a system where hard work is not rewarded.
Very true.
I believe that there is dignity in labor. Everyone should get to work, and while you're working, you will not regret working.
Very true.
Hard work
pays
pays.
off.
So young people can learn from this. When you are given an assignment to do,
just
do it with the whole of your heart. Sometimes the reward may not even come, like it has happened to JAMILU.
That's true.
Sometimes it do not come. Sometimes the reward comes from God himself, which is actually far more better.
But then, like we said yesterday, these are seeds.
Very true.
You don't sow your seeds. We don't know how long this young person has been putting in his absolute best. You know, so these are seeds. You keep planting
it might
them.
not even go to you. It might go to your children. You see, that's the funny thing about seeds. You don't know where it is transplanted to.
Exactly.
Yeah. So tomorrow your children are benefiting, and they are saying, "What's wrong with those children? Why are they just? Why are they just?" Nobody knows the amount of effort you put as their parent that has gone ahead of you.
How does the reverse put it? Ola daddy.
Exactly.
Translated literally, that is wealth.
Yeah.
Right?
Or that is favor.
Yes, exactly.
So yeah, that's a good one. Some sad news from Oyo State. The new Delta variant has killed 2 people, and 1 is in isolation, and they're trying to track, they're trying to have contact tracing.
Yeah. Yesterday, we emphasized in this program that we should get back to observing COVID-19 protocols.
Yes.
That we don't take anything for granted. We are aware that the variants in India killed so many people.
It was horrible.
Even after other countries of the world seems to have relaxed from the COVID-19. It was killing them. So now that we have identified that there is a variant in this country, in Delta, and we can see that 2 people
Oyo
have
State
died.
now. Yeah.
So we just need to be very, very careful.
Yeah.
Any person who has not been vaccinated, go get vaccine. Forget about the theory behind
Conspiracy theories.
because it will help you reduce the chances of
really virulent,
especially in dense populations. The restrictions should even be more, and that is why it's affecting a country like India. They have a very dense population.
Exactly.
And it's the same thing we're at risk of, because Ibadan especially is a very densely populated area.
Exactly.
So it's something we need to be very deliberate about.
They need to take this seriously because it can cause a lot of damage.
It can cause a lot
Within one day,
havoc.
these 2 people can have contact with 100
They don't even know how many they had contact with.
before
They're not
they
saying
discovered
much.
them.
What
Yeah.
areas were they picked up from, and all that. So we should be mindful. We should take precaution as we pray. Watch and pray.
Exactly.
You don't.
Exactly.
Yeah. So talking about the media and the press yesterday. I have a headline here. I'm going to read it exactly as I saw it. Media should be regulated, but I won't support bill to gag press. GMAJABIAMILA. Should I continue reading?
Honestly.
So he said he says any bill with the intention to gag the press will not be passed on the floor of the House.
But bills that regulate the press will be passed. What does he mean by regulation? Because we tend to throw out that word a bit loosely, because Nigeria is a well-regulated environment on paper. We have so many libel laws, we have so many defamation laws. We have even gone as far as criminalizing defamation. So there is civil defamation and there's criminal defamation. So on one hand, the person can sue you. On the other hand, the government can arrest you just for defaming another citizen. Yes. So
those people that
so we actually have libel laws. So there are legal frameworks that guard the use of free speech to affect the reputation of other people. So when they say they want to introduce regulations for the social media, for this, for that, I'm skeptical about it, because the level of trust between the government and the people has reduced drastically over the years. So my opinion is that the laws on ground today are sufficient to guard, if properly implemented. If the people are properly sensitized, the laws on ground now are capable of managing social interaction.
Exactly.
That's my opinion.
Exactly. Because the defamation you talk about, the action of damaging someone's reputation, it could be label, it could be scandal. When it is written, that is properly well thought out and written, it becomes a label. When it is spoken, and it has damaged someone's reputation, you have suffered because of what you have said. Someone has said against you. It has become scandalous, which means that someone can sue you for doing what you have done. The Cybercrime Act, I'm sure, is there and regulating so much. So these things are there, but we tend not to actually implement them. But we want to bring in more.
So can I read what he said? And I'm quoting here. If you go to section 45 of your constitution, it tells you how the government is allowed to limit the freedom of speech for the sake of health and security. And this is written in black and white.
What that section says is that it provides a general exception to the. It's at the end. There's a section. Section chapter 4 that covers all the fundamental rights a citizen is entitled to. So at the end, it puts it as like an exception, saying that although the government can breach these rights when it comes to national safety, public health, national security. So it is these exceptions that gave rise to the current libel and slander laws we have. So I don't know what he's also trying to do. Is he acting like he just discovered the Constitution? Because it is this section 45 that gave birth to the libel and defamation laws we have today.
So now I don't know what they want to go about it, because section 39.
Wait, sorry, there's more gist though. There is more gist, and I'm going to read it. It's a bit of a long read. While I will not allow gagging of the press, I worry when at every time when the National Assembly tries to promulgate a law with the best of intention, everybody descends on the National Assembly. For some, it is immediate reaction. Some just jump on the bandwagon without knowing the details or the issues. I am using this press council bill as an example. I called the proponent of the bill and asked him, what is going on? What have you done? And what is in the bill? He tried to break it down. I have not read it myself, and I'll confess to that. I will read it in details in the next couple of days. I have just a general idea of the content. He told me that he had a meeting with all the stakeholders. I wasn't present at the meeting. He said what they wanted was not acceptable to him.
Okay. Like I was going to say, that in chapter 4, section 39, right to freedom of expression and the press. Talks about every person shall be entitled to freedom of expression, including freedom to hold opinions and to receive and impart ideas and information without interference. I want to believe that whatever they want to come up with, that will be public hearing and what have you.
Hopefully.
And also, whatever they're going to pass, if it's not in tandem with the Constitution, I think it will be null and void.
I like that. That's a very important provision too.
I guess that's all the headlines we can take this morning. We hope you've had a nice time discussing the headlines with us. We shall be going on a short break. When we return, we will be looking at our topic for discussion, which says the legal process of proscribing a person or group a terrorist. Please stay tuned.
You're welcome back, and in case you are just joining us, this is now streaming on ACNNTV. You can also join the conversation through our phone lines or our various social media platforms now showing on your screen. A person who uses unlawful violence and intimidation, especially against civilians in the pursuit of political aims, is called a terrorist, while terrorism is the unlawful use of force or violence against persons or property to intimidate or coerce a government or its citizens to further ascertain political or social objectives. Viewers, with this, we welcome you to the discussion segment where we will be looking at the topic, the legal process of proscribing a person or group as terrorist. Still with us in the studio is Barrister Emmanuel Omole. You're welcome, sir, once again.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Now, quickly, who is a terrorist and what is terrorism?
Okay. First of all, I'm not a terrorist.
Congratulations. Why the disclaimer?
so that I won't be leaving the studio and then a man on suit will come and say, we are from the DSS. I need to ask you some questions. I'll first take terrorism before I explain terrorism. A terrorist, in the general sense, is anyone that commits an act of terrorism. However, in the legal sense, you are not called or allowed to be tagged a terrorist until either you have been convicted by a law court for the offense of terrorism, or you are a member of a group that has been proscribed by law as a terrorist group. So those are the only two grounds you can validly call someone a terrorist. As regards terrorism, terrorism is sort of an abstract concept.
Okay.
Yes, what we have in our laws are acts of terrorism. So since you can't quantify what terrorism is, terrorism is a state of affairs. It's an abstract state of affairs. Once you create an environment where the people are kept in a state of terror due to violence and due to intimidation, then you have created an environment that can be tagged as a terrorist environment. So that's what people tag as terrorism. Okay. But what we have in our laws are acts of terrorism. So once you are found guilty of committing any of those acts, you are a terrorist.
Okay, so what is the 1999 Nigeria Constitution as amended saying about the act of terrorism?
All right, I'll have to explain the legal construct of our laws. Not all our laws are contained in the 1999 Constitution.
Okay.
It is like an umbrella law, a ground norm that gives birth to all the other laws we see today. So based on the sovereignty of the nation and the need to provide for the security and the welfare of the people, several laws have been created defining what terrorism is. So we have the Terrorism Act of 2011 and the Terrorism Act amended of 2013. Okay. It was due to the rise in terrorism when the government discovered that when they caught these terrorists and you take them to court to prosecute them, there was no law. So you can only charge them for murder, normal murder under the penal code.
Can you imagine?
And they did not kill anybody,
exactly,
you're on your own.
On your own. So they were charging them with normal laws that were created. So it was then the government now deemed it fit to promulgate the Terrorism Act in 2011 and 2013. So those are the major laws that prosecute and provide against the act of terrorism.
Okay.
Yes.
So you think you cannot go ahead and possibly tell us what some of the things that the law is saying?
Oh, okay.
If you commit this...
simple English, please.
I'll do
no Latin, right?
No Latin.
No Latin. So the first thing is the act provided for a process in which a group can be proscribed as a terrorist group. Now the act says that it is a court that can do that. Only a court can issue an order proscribing a group. Now how the court does that is that the federal government, through the Attorney General, would bring a motion to the court explaining the activities of this group and why those activities tend to contravene the Terrorist Act.
Oh, okay.
You understand? So by virtue of these actions of this group, and they have been consistent with these actions, it is only fitting that they be proscribed as a terrorist organization. So when the Attorney General brings it to the court reviews it, which is most likely the Federal High Court. They review it, and then the court issues the order to the security agencies. Then the security agencies take this order to the president to give it some form of approval. So when it is approved, they now publish in the official gazette that so group has been proscribed as a terrorist organization. So that's where the process is. It's in the Terrorism Act. The Act also defines or tries to quantify what acts of terrorism are. So it starts with saying that any act that is meant to intimidate and bring terror to a group of people, whether it's within a state or a country, that is a terrorist act. When there are acts that are filled with wanton killings, rape, abductions, and all those in mass, it can't just be one act. Okay. It has to be a consistent act. Yes, so that qualifies it as a terrorist act. Also, destroying national structures, whether the structures are infrastructures or even an economic structure. So, if you destroy a pipeline, you've basically reduced our our budgetary allocation for that year. You have shortened our ration for the year.
We can just call it the income. You have
exactly.
reduced our income.
The revenue, that's what I was thinking. The revenue of the government has reduced. So you have affected Nigeria on a socio-economical scale. Wow. So that way they can tag what you did a terrorist action. Yes.
So what are the causes of terrorism? Do you know?
That's not a legal question. That is me speaking as a Nigerian and a social observer.
There are no legal causes.
There are no legal
for
causes for terrorism. They are only the actions you take. Because if you put legal causes for terrorism, then maybe we can now start holding our government accountable for causing some of these things.
Okay.
Because there are so many causes of terrorism. But predominantly, it is when there is a breakdown of this social contract between the people and the government. When we get to a stage where the government can no longer provide for the security and welfare of the people. For someone to take up weapons and decide to intimidate a population, that person is well aware that the forces on ground would not be able to prevent me from doing these things, because most times when people intend to break the law, one of the things that primarily prevents them from doing that is the security apparatus of that particular state. When you know that this guy insulted me, I want to go and fight him. But if I fight him, I get arrested immediately. So you're cautious. So once people see that there's a breakdown in the social construct, and they take advantage of it to intimidate and terrorize people. Yes.
All right.
Dare I ask if you know any reason people can go into terrorism or become terrorists?
I think, in my opinion, one of the strongest factors is religion. Because most times when people are being pushed to carry arms, it is that compelling force of spiritual rationalization. You feel that there is a need to defend a particular faith. There is a need to protect your religion. There is a need. So at the very basic, that is why it is very easy to cajole someone into committing terrorist act using religion alone. If you're just coming to say, you are not feeding, you are hungry,
so
there's poverty, take up weapons, there's poverty. People might be reluctant to follow you that, and there's poverty, so I should just carry guns and start kidnapping and shooting people. So religion has a higher force. Religion has a force so high that even someone that's not suffering from poverty, he's not poor. He comes from do you remember this gentleman, Abdul Muttalib, that tried to blow up the plane? I think 2012 or so. He came from a very well-to-do family, very rich family. So he didn't have any social issues. Yeah, there was no poverty or lack of education. He was well educated. You understand? So above poverty, I know poverty is a factor. Above lack of education, that's another factor. But I feel the one that carries the strongest wind is religion. Radicalized religion, if I may add.
I just noticed that going through the 2021 terrorism index, that Nigeria is number 3.
That's worrisome.
It gets me bothered.
It is. It's quite worrisome. And I think one of the biggest factors is in pushing us that high up the ladder is in the government response, the response of government to it. I don't think we're number 3 in terms of the volume of destruction.
Yeah.
Yes, but when you take the volume of destruction and you mix it with the level of the lackadaisical attitude, the attitude of government to suggest that we have given up this fight. It is that attitude that now makes it a very critical situation, because you go to some places and you are telling them that, they are terrorists, what are you people doing? And they're like, what can we do? Soldiers are telling you that we don't have weapons, what are we going to do? There are soldiers running away from the battlefield that our bodies are no weapon. You won't say I should cut off my hand and stone it to the terrorists. There's nothing to do, so they have to. You understand? So it's the attitude from the government that has pushed us to that extreme.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So now, what do you have to say on the increase in crime rates in Nigeria? And why do you think that the government has refused to proscribe Boko Haram, bandits, killer herdsmen? For me, they are already terrorists.
In your opinion?
In my opinion, because of what they do. And despite all the calls,
we pray none of them is watching this.
Despite all the calls, there is this. The government is in this. The body language suggests
the attitude.
The attitude, like you've said, is lackadaisical. They are not willing to say these people are.
Yes. May I first state that Boko Haram has actually been proscribed.
Okay.
Yes, in 2013 through this process that I explained earlier.
Okay.
The government of Goodluck Jonathan went through this process and successfully issued a notice on the official gazette proscribing Boko Haram as a terrorist organization.
Okay.
The only other group which we will end up coming to that has happened to after that is IPOB. But I want to create a dichotomy. The first is that these groups that have been proscribed as terrorist organizations are quite distinct from the killer headsmen and the bandits we see today, because these groups that have been proscribed have a level, there's an international qualification, yes, which the Geneva Conventions and the additional protocols have qualified non-state armed groups. So the qualification is when you display some form of, first is protracted violence, when the violence is at a high volume for a long time. But the second, which is what I'm even concentrating on, is a reasonable level of organizational structure. That is what differentiates a group that you can push and say, let us target a terrorist group, form other splinter groups. So these groups like Boko Haram have a level, they have, you see them, they have deputies, they have heads, they have deputies, they have departments, so they have units. So there's a structure and there's a reporting structure. They have branches, they have branch leaders that report to the headquarters. You understand? While the bandits are a bit splintered, any group that can get their hands on a high level of high caliber weapons, they just go around wreaking havoc. There's no head. Like Boko Haram has Shekau as their head. We don't know whether he's alive or not. But the bandits don't have a uniform head. This is the head of Bandits Association of Nigeria. No, they are just scattered. The headsmen are scattered everywhere too. There's no uniformity. So that's why it's going to be very difficult for any court to listen to the Attorney General when he comes and says, let us proscribe the headsmen. Because the question they will ask is, are these people just splintered terrorist individuals causing havoc here and there, or have they come together as a group to warrant it?
So you see, that is this problem, that is this lacuna in terms of information. What you're saying now is what a lot of people have not come to the realization that there must be something like this. And the government are not willing to come out openly and educate the public and say, this is how these things are done.
This is how they go.
So they make people feel that they are reluctant in doing the needful. So thank you so much for educating us. I think that the National Orientation Agency, the Ministry of Information,
they're still open.
Oh my goodness!
I'm sorry. I'm shocked.
So these are the kind of things they should do.
There were some MDAs that were scrapped by government.
Okay, so
I actually thought they were one of them.
They're still there. They're still there.
Okay, that doesn't say much.
I'm sorry, National Orientation. I apologize.
So I was going to even ask whether there are other agencies that will educate the masses on who a terrorist
saved me from serious
and how to identify them.
Because if I got into that part, I would have said no, there is none. So, well, what we have today, unfortunately, is the security agents have taken up that responsibility. Because what you see today is the men from the DSS, the military, the police going into communities to try and explain to them how these groups work and how to identify them and report them back.
They actually do that.
They're actually making those efforts.
Oh,
it may not be in a large scale,
but at least
it's not their primary responsibility, but at least they've taken up those responsibilities. I feel the agencies of government that have been created for this purpose need to intensify their efforts, especially when it gets to reaching the people in the rural areas with the local radio stations and all that, because not all of them see your average AIT channels, but to go into these communities and sensitize them, because some of these communities are living with terrorists. They are living in and around terrorists.
Absolutely.
But they don't know. They just see it as neighboring village. Some people just it's the neighboring village. They don't know it's a terrorist camp. You understand? So if these people are not properly oriented, they won't know. So they won't be able to share the relevant intelligence that the agency needs.
And I dare say, even when they know, they don't know they can report, or they don't know who to report to.
That's another disconnect between the agencies and the people. Which is another thing the orientation agency was meant to change, because the only time these people see soldiers is when there's a military tank coming to your village and you are running thinking they want to blow up or burn down your village. So they hardly ever see, okay, this is the soldier, let's go and interact with him, or this is the PRO of this military division, let's go and talk to him. No, there's a bit of might dynamics between the security. It even happens in the towns and in the cities. We can barely go up to our police officers on the road and ask them what's going on and
discuss with them.
Yes, how is everything?
I had an encounter with a military personnel, a young man that I obviously know that in terms of age,
yes.
I see him.
Yeah.
In fact, he looks like a new recruit. Even if he was a lieutenant, I know he was still far junior. Just because I say, OC, how far now? The way he looked at me.
Ouch.
It's like, who is this?
Are you disrespecting?
I
think our security agencies need to start putting a human face.
Because I wanted to interact with him.
Your primary responsibility is to interact with the people. We are not in a prison and you are our prison guard. You are part of the people. There's countries where they mandate these barracks, but there are also countries where the police, they live with the people. So your neighbor might be a police officer. You see them every day. Your kids go to school with them. You understand? So there's meant to be a human face to this.
Okay.
So I think you've already told us who are people who are responsible for checkmating terrorism in Nigeria and all that. So we have a concern, and the concern is with the reasons given by the government for proscribing IPOB as a terrorist group. What do you have to say, or do you agree with the government? Because IPOB group is not like the Boko Haram group. You understand? Yes, they have organizational structures and what have you, and sometimes too, what their leader, who had just been arrested, the way he go about doing some things were actually not right, and all that. So how can you help us out of this quagmire?
Help us clarify this matter.
Can I take a very deep sigh first?
By all means.
You're about to enter deep water. This is a very controversial issue.
Okay.
First of all, let me draw from my comments earlier, where I stated the international threshold for tagging groups to be terrorist groups. It's a twofold. On one hand, you're talking about the volume of the protracted violence that they cause before you now get to the other hand, which is the organizational structure. So even if IPOB fulfills the organizational structure part, I'm not so sure they fulfill the part of protracted wanton violence. That's on one hand. On the other hand, there is an international term, or a term under international law, called the right to self-determination of any ethnic group. Okay. So the law allows an ethnic group to decide that, okay, this is how we want to be governed, this is how we want to live. Okay, we don't want to be part of this country anymore, we want to form our own country. It gives them that right to just say they want to go and they walk out and go. However, there is a procedure to that right, which is a whole other topic. Maybe the next time I come, I might want to take us through that. The problem, where the origin of the problem, is the way and manner this right to self-determination is being advocated for.
Okay.
First of all, I doubt there was ever any referendum in the eastern part of Nigeria stating that this is what we want, because till today there are still splits on the discussion of Biafra. That is one. Number two, if you look at the people in leadership today, they are governors, they are House of Reps members, they are senators, they are House of Assembly members. I doubt, I stand to be corrected, I doubt that any of them is in support or in public support, if I may qualify.
Okay,
that's right.
Yeah.
That's a better way of putting it.
Public support of this particular move. So automatically it shows to a layman or a person that just comes in, it shows that immediately, because the first question you ask is, okay, these people want to go, what are their governors saying, what are their leaders saying? And then you look at their leaders and their leaders are quiet. So normally you can't even substantiate this particular move because the leaders are not in support. That's another angle. Another phase is the way and manner which their leader, Nnamdi Kanu, has decided to go about it. Usually there is no aspect of self-determination that justifies violence, that justifies sharing and spreading hateful words, hateful comments, and all that. Yes, you want to leave Nigeria, but are you trying to war with Nigeria? Are you trying to destroy Nigeria? Because that's the justification the government is coming under. We know these people want to leave, but there's a whole process. On the other hand, this man is just causing violence and causing hatred and spreading intimidation and terror all over the country. You understand? So the government has not even sat down to address the issue. Nobody has sat down to address the issue of secession. They have just fallen on or taken advantage of his improper mode of protest. And then they just followed up with him. So as for the trial and the arrest, I can't comment because it's currently in court, so we're not allowed to
talk about it.
Yes.
Okay, so constitutionally, what punishment is accorded to terrorists?
There's a range of offenses and their punishments in the terrorism acts, the two terrorism acts. But if I'm to give a bracket, it's from, because terrorism is a capital offense, so it is from 20 years imprisonment to death.
That's a lot.
So that is the parameter.
If it's that serious an offense and all that, can a group or a person, that has been proscribed a terrorist and feels they're not, can they actually legally take up the government on the matter to say, it's not me, I didn't do it?
That's actually what happened in the IPOB case.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. They went back to the Federal High Court. The Federal High Court rejected the application because, according to them, argument from the government
was a stronger
argument, was more convincing, so showing that they even went to the COAS court, and it was the same result, saying that the government's argument that you have fulfilled these thresholds is a stronger argument than you just saying that no, we are not.
So, but hypothetically speaking, now let's say a person has been prescribed a terrorist but has a superior argument. Is it possible to
because it's the government that
prescribe
or de-prescribe?
It's the government, it's the courts
that
actually give the order prescribing. The government only takes the order and publishes it. So if you can convince the court that that order was not given with the accurate amount of particulars, and there are other particulars showing that you are actually not, then the court, what the court usually does is that it either varies the order or discharges the order. So when it discharges the order, it takes a reverse.
You become unprescribed.
But the government will also have to issue a notice to
unprescribed. I'm sure there's no word like that.
Are no longer.
They didn't do it, so it's not them.
Uniform.
Not terrorists. Okay, so in 30 seconds, because we're far run out of time. In 30 seconds, what's your advice to viewers and the judiciary in regards to the topic we're discussing this morning?
My advice is first to the viewers is I believe that if the citizens of this country put in a bit more effort to engaging the government institutions, if we start, since we've not been oriented, we start reorienting ourselves.
Or getting oriented.
Or doing it to each other. Just increasing the understanding that the government works for you. The true power lies in the people. And when the people take a stand, the government has no choice than to follow. And that people should start taking responsibility for whatever is happening in their society. Maybe from that point of view, the conversations can start, because a lot of conversations start from the government didn't do this, the government didn't do that. A lot of people, just like we're talking about the flood early this morning. Government, the roads are not nice, but you're the one that took the pure water sachet and threw it into the gutter. It's not
you know why he's laughing? It is a major issue for me.
You're the one that will eat your Mr. Biggs and then squeeze it and throw it into
out of your window.
And then if you would even be looking whether it safely entered. It's still, the responsibility is a dual one. So while we're demanding the government should do, we should start learning to take responsibilities, because at the root cause, the more the breakdown there is between this relationship between the government and the people, the more the larger that environment is for terrorists to start springing up. So we need to start patching this relationship between the government and the people.
A stitch in time and all. Thank you very much, sir. It's been great having you on. Join the conversation this morning.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much again. Tuesdays are great.
Emmanuel, you have to become my private lawyer. I will see you after the program.
After the program.
It's just that some of us are expensive.
Who told you we cannot afford? What's that?
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Nice
thank you so much, gentlemen. It's been a great conversation, and I hope we've been able to convince and not confuse our viewers.
That thing you see on your head.
They beat it into me. I can't forget it. Psalm 34 and verse 14 says, "Depart from evil and do good. Seek peace and pursue it." Viewers, this is where we call it a day for today's program. Till we come your way again, same time, same station tomorrow. Be a law-abiding citizen and do good at all times.